So we are live, and I'm joined with Brian Hess of, well, he has many different things, which you'll hear about in the show a little bit, but he works with Paving Group and Top Contractor School, and he's recently started with Lead Revenue, and this is kind of my first time chatting with Brian, and we've been chatting a little bit off air, and we're going to record some stuff that hopefully you as a listener can take away and learn from. So, Brian, if you want to quickly tell your story, I'd actually like to learn a little bit more about your story and where you came from and how you got into the asphalt industry. So maybe you can kind of start there.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So thanks for having me first and foremost, man. And, I think the most important role that I play in life is I'm the father of 4 young children, the oldest being 7. She's almost 8. Husband to an awesome wife that stays home and handles all those little ones every day. So that's a heck of a job and task that she's got there. And then, so I am president of the Pavement Group, founder of Top Contractor School, and then recently, as you mentioned, took a board of directors position with Lead Revenue. And so that's kind of my day-to-day thing. How I got into the asphalt industry is back in 2010, I was relocated. I was in corporate America. I worked for Verizon Wireless, so I was running business sales teams for Verizon and got relocated from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I live now, down to South Florida. And when I got down to South Florida, we had an upset customer that I went to meet with that we had owed a bunch of money to in back bill credits, and they were pretty upset. So as the leader, I volunteered to go to that meeting so I could hopefully, talk the customer down. That customer happened to own a construction company. And at the end of that meeting, he said, "Man, you should quit your job and come work for me." And I was like, man, I was 30 years old, at the time. I think I got the world all figured out. I'm like, man, I'm good. I don't know about this asphalt stuff. I didn't know anything about it at the time, So long story short, he said, "Well, if you won't take my job offer, will you come to my house for dinner Friday night?" I'm like, man, I'm still living in a hotel, right? I've just been relocated. So I'll take you up on dinner. One thing led to another. A year later, a year to the day after I arrived in South Florida, I decided to hang up the old corporate cleats and step into the world of private business, and went into the asphalt and concrete world and didn't know anything about asphalt and concrete. This was October 2011. Grew up around construction. Family has construction businesses and things like that in it. My dad's very handy, so not a stranger to it, but didn't know anything about it. But I knew sales and I knew business, and so we grew that company pretty rapidly over the next couple of years that I was there. And, next thing you know, I left that company and then, bounced around a little bit. And next thing you know, here we are with all this stuff going on with the Pavement Group and Top Contractor School. And, I don't know, man, if you would have told me 10 years ago that the journey would be what it is, I don't know if I would have believed you, but I'm grateful and happy that it was, and man, it's just worked out great. It's been a great industry for me and for my family, and it's been a good ride.
That's awesome. That's interesting to come from sales at Verizon to working in the asphalt industry. You wouldn't think of that.
Yeah, literally, dude, took off a shirt and tie.
Yeah,
and, came into this industry, and actually, I wore a suit pretty much every day to work for a long time, and I don't miss that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Certainly you can breathe a little bit easier without
no doubt.
So talk a bit about what Pavement Group does. I got that right. What do you guys do? Is it paving, seal coating, striping?
Yeah, so we're a nationwide contractor. So we do asphalt and concrete top to bottom, no matter what it is, sidewalks, full paving jobs, all the way down to replacing signs and putting in bollards and things like that. And our business is really built around, multi-property owners. So, we have local offices in a bunch of different places, but we started out primarily serving the national clients. So anybody with a lot of properties is a good customer for us. Retailers, hotels, distribution, anything like that. And we go out and perform the jobs, but we also teach the customers how to kind of manage their pavement assets. So it's kind of a unique approach that we take to, an age-old business, in that if you've got a portfolio of hundreds and hundreds of properties, you can imagine how difficult that is to kind of manage the maintenance of that and to manage the costs of it. And we've done pretty well in both leveraging technology and leveraging our knowledge and experience on how to best manage those big portfolios of assets. So it's kind of a unique business model and a little niche market within a big, asphalt, paving, and concrete world. But it's an awesome business, and we've developed some really unique approaches to how to do the stuff that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, the question that's kind of jumping out at me right now is, are you based out of Pennsylvania then, like out of Pittsburgh? Is that the home office?
Yeah, so we have offices in Boston, Pittsburgh, and Minneapolis, and then we've got employees in a bunch of different places. And then we either perform work, in some cases like maintenance work, stuff like that, we'll perform ourselves. And then when it gets into the larger projects, things like that, we partner up with local contractors and organize those jobs, manage them, and make sure that we have a project manager on site to make that all happen.
Gotcha. So you basically are managing and overseeing all the jobs for say hotels across the country, whatever your clients are, and providing the process for the local contractor to basically subcontract underneath you.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, and then again in those local markets, we've got local crews that can do whatever it is. So
would you be in every state then, that like basically able to provide service in every state?
I want to say that last year we did business in like 42 states or something like that. So it's a pretty significant amount. You don't get to every state just because there's not a lot going on in every state based on your customer list. But yeah, it's pretty extensive. We haven't done anything in Hawaii or Alaska yet. There's a handful of continental states that we didn't touch last year, but outside of that, we got them all.
And so how long has the pavement group been around? Been a while.
So we started in March of 2018, end of March 2018. And man, it's been a ride, dude. So just over 2 years.
That's crazy. So, I mean, that begs the question, what did you do to scale? And like, what was the process for, day one, you have the idea, and now 2 years later, you're rocking and rolling in 42 states.
Yep. So I've got, from the time that we started out in business, I always had, a strategy of how we were going to get where we were going to go. And it started with, choosing the right customers to go after, right? So it was about, just taking the time up front to establish who do we actually want to do business with and who are we going to bring value to, most importantly, right? Like, our model is not for every single customer. If somebody is looking for the absolute bottom dollar price, that is not something that we want to be competitive in. However, on the flip side, if they're looking for good quality management, making sure they're getting what they're paying for, and they're in an environment where safety and the safety of everybody, safety of their customers, not impacting some big way while we're working, those are the things that we bring to the table. And so you have to understand who those customers are that are worried about that they might be willing to pay a little bit more. In a lot of cases, we are competitive with the local contractor because we're able to buy better. We're able to buy in larger quantities. And so we can maneuver through that pricing and really reduce it down where we're competitive with the local markets. But it starts and ends with, identifying the right customers and then having a strategy to be able to acquire those customers that reaches far and wide. And so that leads to, the all-out assault that we took on social media, if you will, and trying to get out there and get in front of people, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, really connecting those dots and then partnering that with a powerful marketing and sales approach that gets us in front of as many people as we can. And then once we start onboarding that work, having the back end processes built that are able to support that. One of the things that we did very well at the beginning is, we always acted as if we were a big company, so that, even when we were first starting, so that when we started to scale, we didn't really have to shift much. We had things in place that regardless of how much work we brought in, we could plug another team member in. We never missed a beat and we just kept rolling. And it's still like that to this day. If we need to add 2 or 3 more people, we've got the processes and things in place that allow people to come in and get acclimated very quickly and be able to service our customers as quick as possible. So
there's 2 years isn't a lot of time to try and restructure and reorganize, and if you're trying to scale. So I think that's a pretty key thing.
Yeah. It's critical, man. And I think, a lot of times when you're starting out in business, you're just thinking about trying to make it. And that was something that I witnessed other companies do in the past, was just, they were just worried about making it. And then when they really did make it, then they had problems, right? Because they had things, they didn't have the things in place that allowed them to be scalable. I think that it's a huge benefit to us that we have people all over the place, because we have to set up our processes and systems so that information is accessible from everyone, right? So it's technologically, we have the things in place that allow us to scale as a result of just the way that our business is set up. So we've got people in those major cities, but then we've got people all over the place that just plug into the system and they're ready to go. And so that makes us nimble in the sense that we can get to people a lot faster than most companies can. And at the same time, it helps improve communication, improve the speed, improve the quality, make sure there's nothing that we have to go back to on a job, because every last detail is laid out and everybody has the visibility to see that.
I love it. So would you have basically an online program where you bring, so say I'm a local contractor that you've decided I meet your standards and whatnot. Do I just plug into an online training portal and walk through the whole process there?
Yeah, so typically we're doing that like one-to-one when we first start with someone, so we'll onboard a contractor. So if there's anybody listening that wants to do work with us, they can just go to our website and there's a certified partners link on there. You can fill out the information and somebody on our team will reach out to you and just, kind of feel it out. Like, who is this company and what do they do? What territory do they cover? Do we already have contractors that we work with in that area? What's that fit look like? And then as we walk through the process of servicing our customers, we walk that contractor through that process along with us, right? And so that kind of leads to the second point of our conversation here of Top Contractor School, is that's really why we started that. Why I started it back then was, I really wanted to be able to give back to the contractors that help us get things done across the country, whether it's sales training, marketing, leadership, all that stuff. I wanted to be able to give back to those contractors, but be able to help them, grow their businesses. And if we can contribute to them in some way, then it only helps us, and it obviously improves the experience for my team and our customers at the same time. So it's a process that kind of it takes care of itself. We do have an internal process, well-defined process that is part of. And many of those contractors do go through the Top Contractor School training. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So, is it just for asphalt, this Top Contractor School, or does it apply to anybody with a service business? Or?
Yeah, no, we've got roofers in there. We've got site contractors, excavators. I'm trying to think. There's an HVAC company that's in there. We've got a handful. It's just our industry is the primary, just because that's where I spend most of my time. And yeah, most of the people that know us from this industry. So, but yeah, it's growing, right? There's always people reaching out, asking about it. I think a lot of people want a specific vertical, right, type training, which I don't blame them. But certainly, if you went through the content that's in there, it's applicable to any business.
Yeah, I was taking a peek a couple weeks ago, I think, and I can't remember if you laid out specifically what's in kind of the modules, but maybe you can just touch briefly on that.
Yeah, so we've got a sales mentorship program, which it was an 8-week program that I used to do one-on-one, and I still do it one-on-one with companies. So companies will bring me in, and I'll kind of walk through everything from how to organize themselves, how to create discipline with their sales team, to how do you prospect, what do you say, what's the sales process look like, actually implementing a well-defined sales process that will give them predictable results. All the way through, how do you follow up? How do you get people that don't answer the phone when you're trying to follow up with them? How do you get them to answer the phone? What are the things that you say when you cold call people to actually not have them hang up on you and be able to, gain new customers? Where do you find prospects in today's world? All that type of stuff is included in the sales mentorship program. Then we also have the operations mentorship program, which is, more for how do you organize your crews, How do you get productivity up? How do you buy equipment? How do you reinvest in your business? When do you reinvest in your business? When do you keep chugging along with used equipment? When do you buy new? When do you buy used? All that stuff. And then kind of the newest thing that we have is the Top Contractor Elite program. And so that is ongoing training. We just did one this past Tuesday night. So we do generally
like a mastermind.
Generally 3 or 4 calls a month. I try to take at least 1 week with downtime a month where I don't have a call. It's either Tuesdays or Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we get on there and talk about, anything and everything from, digital marketing to sales to, how do you do year-end appraisals, year-end conversations? How do you set up your sales team for success? And 2020 was one of the topics that we did in January. Again, how do you find prospects? And we go into detail and there's demos, I pull up my screen and show people how we do it. This week's topic was advanced project management. So how do you manage a project so that everybody that's involved in that project knows what's going on?
This would be like an open team. Would this be like a Zoom format where people can raise their hand and holler at you?
Yeah, it is. And then on top of that, we record them all and they go into an online library where people can go back, and we've got built into their resource center. So you can get coaching documents, sales documents. What does a sales agenda look like? How do you how do you assess properties? And, is there a form that we can provide somebody? So we've got job descriptions. I mean, you name it. There's documents that we provide. And if we don't have a document, we find it and create it and give it to people so that, our goal in that is to have business owners be able to step into that program and as much as they can put their business on autopilot, where they don't have to spend the time to do all the things that have already been done. Those things would be provided for them so that they can focus on doing what they're good at.
I love it. Yeah. And for anybody listening, just obviously check out what Brian's doing. But I've been following, I think we've been connected for a month or two on Facebook, and I've been following, Brian has like a daily mindset show. And I can vouch for the fact that he's out there to add value. So this is not just, another course. I've had several people on in the past, and I always like them to talk about their courses because I think that paying for mentorship in courses is really important. It's gotten me to where I am today, and I know that I wouldn't be there without people feeding in, knowledge, experiential knowledge. Success leaves clues, as we were saying earlier. And if you can hook your wagon up to someone who's already been there, done that, and has worked out the kinks, it's gonna save you a lot of money in the long run.
Yeah, you shorten the cycle, man. And I was showing you some books that I've read and some things that I'm big on education, and so it takes. And I think also, man, when you and not just because I own a training company, but anybody, if you would go anywhere and invest into anything, when you put your money into something, you take it more seriously.
Yep.
And you really do try to get something out of it. You're wanting to get a return out of it. And I tell people all the time, man, there's plenty of information out there on YouTube that you can get for free, And so when you're at that point in your life where free is the best option for you, that's what you should be doing, right? But then when you get to a point where you've got some extra money and you've got some things, I think it makes total sense to me. I do it personally. You do it too, is to find those things that make sense and invest into them, because when you invest your money, you're going to meet new people. You're going to build new relationships. You're going to get business out of that. You're going to get knowledge out of it. And it's just going to make things a lot better. I'm a part of a couple programs like that myself. And those programs have paid huge dividends for me because, I make it a point to get something out of the things that I invest into,
and apply it. Right. And that's the biggest thing is, like you said, the networking is so important. The shortening the cycle, but also just, I've budgeted a certain amount a year that I'm, it's either books, audiobooks, at least 1 or 2 mentorship programs, because if you're not going forward, you're going backwards. That's something my dad always said, and I'm sure he got it from somewhere as well. But, you can't stagnate. You don't stand still in life. You're either losing it or you're improving it. And so it's so important to always be learning, and the times are changing all the time too, right? Like what worked today might not work tomorrow.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I say about our sales training program. fortunately or fortunately because I started that company, but unfortunately for our industry, there just wasn't ever a lot of these types of things out there. Like there's not a lot of these programs out there, especially in the asphalt and concrete world. You know, there are business coaches, there are people that come to your business, but it was more of the, you know, the traditional approach of like, let me come to your office and do this assessment. And that stuff's pretty expensive, you know, like, and not every company can afford to invest 5 digits into, you know, a visit to figure out what's wrong, and then however much money to get that on track. And so I wanted to create something that a lot of people could afford to be a part of. And that's why, you know, Top Contractor School has the offers that it does. Like you can bring me to your office and we can do one-on-one coaching over Zoom that's customized to your company, or you can join the elite program for $150 a month and get all the knowledge that you could possibly ask for, not just from me, but from the people who are part of that program and the resources. You know, the people who are part of Top Contractor School is where all the value is, right? I just get to lead it. But you've got, you know, people like the Callaways, who we talked about offline. I mean, you know, the years of experience that are on the screen every single Tuesday or Thursday night is just unbelievable. And the people want to help, right? Like,
exactly.
Why are we doing this right now? Because we're trying to help people. You're on a mission to help people. And I respect that. And that's why I want to take time out of my day to be here, talk to you, get to know you, and hopefully we can help some people together.
Exactly. That's I'm actually, so right now, I mean, I'm just finishing up my day job, but I've actually considered the Top Contractor, like the daily call or the weekly call. Sorry. You know, I'm on a lot of calls, so I need to make sure I'm not just on calls all the time because I have to hit the ground.
I'll overcome your objection. It's recorded, so you can watch it after the fact.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Well, and that's perfect for everybody listening too, right?
Yep.
Because, you know, the more you can get involved, I prefer the live because I find the energy is a lot different for me.
For sure.
Because when you're listening to it recorded, yes, you can speed it up, but then you can kind of tune it out a little bit. Whereas if someone's actually talking, you're like, okay, I got it. Like it feels more respectful.
Nobody's paying attention to see if you're paying attention if it's after the fact, right?
Exactly. So, still valuable resource, but I like the vibe of a live.
Yeah, man. I'd love to have you on. I'll send you an invite to next week's call. We're actually doing, I don't know if you've ever heard of, we're doing entrepreneurial operating system. So it's a structured approach. There's a book out there. You can look it up. The author is Gino Wickman, but the book is called What the Heck is EOS? And it'll explain to you, just put structure into small businesses. It's a really good program. And so,
and he has does he do another book called Traction? Okay. Yeah. I had Parker Perrion on a couple weeks ago and he recommended, I haven't had a chance to dive in, but yeah, it's on my list of books to read.
Parker's a good dude, man.
Yeah. You guys kind of go in the same circles as well?
Yep. He's a cool cat, man, for sure.
Yeah. I know we had a good chat as well. That's awesome. Yeah, no, and I think, you know, I always like people, I'm having people on here for me to learn stuff. And at the same time, I think people who are listening can learn stuff. So I always like for you to talk about what you're up to and kind of what you're doing to offer back. I did want to kind of circle back to the pricing. You mentioned really, really quickly how you don't want to kind of compete with the people that are doing the lowest price and all of that stuff. I see that in the group so often. I have a group as well called Contractors Growth Tips and Strategies. I'm not sure if you've popped in there.
I'm in there.
Yeah. And I'm kind of, you know, learning how to run a group and offer value myself. But one of the things I see so often is people, you know, the trip to the bottom, the race to the bottom on prices. Maybe you can talk a bit about what you do to position yourself in a way that you're comfortable charging what you charge and not lowering your price.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to that, man, that are key. And I think, you know, being a person who was in sales my entire life, like this is almost like second nature to me, but it's not for a lot of people in our industry. So I think it's a really good question. And I talk about this a lot. It's, you know, the people that feel the pressure to kind of race to the bottom, if you will, are generally the people that they don't have enough leads coming in, they don't have a big enough sales funnel in general, right? So there's two ways that you can build a sales funnel. You can have a bunch of leads coming in. Well, I guess 3 ways. You can have a bunch of leads coming in. You can cold call and manufacture that list yourself, or you can do a combination of both. Number 3 is the best, right? The third option is always the best, is to, you know, cultivate a list yourself, right? You're picking the customer, they're not picking you. And then having some supplemental activity coming in through whatever it is, whatever form of marketing you decide to do. That's always helpful, because you will go through ups and downs if you are the person manufacturing the activity yourself all the time.
Yeah.
But I think that, it's generally that lack of a big enough and healthy enough sales funnel that leads people to want to drop their prices all the time. And so, the number one thing is, well, I guess that's two-sided too, because the second part is they're not confident in the value that they bring. They're not confident enough in that value. And so I think that it starts with having a well-defined sales process that really explores the customer's needs and, drives them to understand the value that we bring, right? So
Exactly.
If I sit here and ask you enough questions, Lewis, and I understand what your challenges are, what your problems have been, what issues you've had with contractors in the past, what your expectations of the job are, and I can deliver on all of those things, and I can create a really pleasant experience for you that makes you really comfortable, I'm going to tell you 95 to 99% of the people out there are willing to pay for that additional value that they feel.
Yep.
And so it's not about the price that somebody pays. It's about the value that they get out of that, because it's not just the job. And I'll use this analogy because I think it's really appropriate for our industry. If you and I are both paving a parking lot, we're both using the same materials, probably from the same plant. We're probably using a similar piece of equipment to put it down, right? If we're bidding on the same job, it's probably within reason, it's the same. But your job ends up with no puddles, and mine has a couple puddles on it. They paid both of us $100,000 to do the job. Which one is worth more?
100%. Yeah. Well, mine
yours is worth more because it doesn't have any puddles and it doesn't have any issues. Yeah. Now, take that a step further. They had a much better experience with you, right? Everything was planned and executed the way they wanted it to be. Everything was, every box was checked, and they felt like they were part of the process. It was a collaborative approach. Not I just showed up, ripped out your parking lot, put a new one back, but you knew what was happening every step of the way. That's the value that people miss, I think, in our industry, is that the customer, they have an opinion of contractors because of the experience of how people have interacted with contractors for a lot of years. And so it's our job as professionals in our industry to change that perception that people have. And it's easy to do. It's easier to do than people think, right? Because it's not about just the material and just the truck that you drive, or it's about really connecting with people and really listening and understanding what they're telling you and asking questions to understand more, and then being able to provide the best solution. And if you do that, you're not going to win 100% of those jobs, even if you do everything right, but you're going to win a higher percentage, and that's going to lead to you being able to get the price that you're asking a lot more frequently.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think something that kind of stood out to me in what you just finished up saying is, the way that you interact with people is so important. A lot of contractors are really rude. And my wife has a psychology background, so I've learned a lot about myself being married to her, and and mentors and coaches and stuff. And people are speaking out of what's coming from inside them, right? So it's so important to have yourself figured out. One of my sales mentors says, like, if the days that he doesn't go through his routine and get his mindset right and come with compassion and love for his customers are the days that he doesn't perform as well, because he's speaking out of a place that's not prepared to help people. And I think that's something I've seen a lot in the industry is people are rude. They feel offended when customers don't take their jobs, and that's the way it is. They're not taking your job for one reason or another, and the key is find out what you're doing wrong that makes them not want to hire you. Right.
And if you get offended by them not taking your job, it's probably because you don't have a healthy enough sales funnel.
Yeah, exactly. You're desperate at that point, and so you're gonna keep slashing it. And as someone who provides leads for people, it's like, dude, like I watch some of their conversations with the client, with the customers, and it's like, well, why'd you cut that price in half? Like, they didn't even object to anything yet. And like, well, they just didn't say anything for a day. And I was like, okay, well, you just lost half of your job, like, and so you have zero profit now. And so it doesn't even make sense for you to be paying me if you're not making a profit, right? And so,
Correct.
yeah, it's I think it's a very interesting. I love hearing different people's perspectives on it, and you coming from a sales background and also being in the industry, I think is really cool to hear that.
Yeah, it's a constant problem, man, and I think, you know, people also don't realize what they're doing to the market pricing and to the industry pricing when they're doing that stuff, because, you know, then that person tells somebody what they got it for, and it becomes a bigger challenge to maintain the price that, you know, I mean, people need to make a living, you know, like you can't be in business and not provide, you know, fair wages and fair places, a great place to work to people if you're not turning a profit. So it's you know, it's not about going out there and doing work for no money, and customers don't expect that either, by the way. You know, they don't want you to do work for cost, because if you do that, when they call you back in a year and they have some kind of issue or they need something else done, you're not going to be around.
Exactly. Well, and you know, if the customer does want you to go to the bottom with them, then you don't want them as a customer, because they're gonna come out while you're on the job and they're gonna complain, and they're gonna be like, oh, well, what about this? And all right, so one thing, you know, as someone who's starting out small, yes, you're probably not going to be able to charge. You're going to be gaining confidence. You're going to be doing all of that stuff, and you're not going to have as high overhead. So, you know, for the bigger people, something I always say is, don't have a poverty mindset. If it is a weekend warrior, they're not going to last very long if they're just racing to the bottom. If it's someone who's just starting out, help them. You say, hey, look, I think you could be charging more, and you help us. Don't bash them, right?
Yeah, scarcity or abundance. If you saw, I don't know if you saw the video that I shared the other day, but Gary Vaynerchuk talked about how to build the tallest building, right? Yeah. 2 ways to build the tallest building. Either A, you can focus on building the tallest building that you can, or B, you can build a fairly tall building and you can focus on tearing everybody else's buildings down so that you end up ultimately with the tallest building. Yeah. And, you know, it's just the way that I choose to live, and I only surround myself with people that are focused on building the tallest building and helping other people build their buildings, not trying to tear other people's buildings down. There's a lot of conversation around this in our industry about, you know, the guys that are starting out and, man, they're this, they're that. And, you know, it's one of the reasons that I started Top Contractor School. It's like, man, nobody gets into business and wants to not do it right. None of them want to be out there on their own, you know, trying to figure it out and making mistakes. And so we've tried to create a community where people can get that advice. And again, it's not we have a free group, Top Contractor Community. I would encourage anyone, or in your group, man, tag me. Yeah. You know, you got a question, tag me. I'm happy to answer anybody's question. You know, I don't need, people don't have to be a member of our programs for me to answer questions. I do it all day, every day. And it excites me to be in some way helpful and part of somebody's journey to be able to do that. And that's what it's all about, man. It's about helping people and really, you know, leveraging this into improving our industry overall. It's like, you know, how do we do that? How do we make sure that we get the price that we want? Let's have that conversation in an open forum, and we can all get better from it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if we can all go up together, we're all going to go up together, and it's going to be so good. And that's why I had you on, is I've seen you as someone who interacts and provides value. That, you know, I always say, well, if I can give you a half an hour of my time, I'm not going to charge you for it, because I've had other people help me, give me the knowledge. You know, you could find this knowledge, but if I can give back and share with you and help you, you know, maybe down the road, yeah, that'd be awesome if you became a customer, but that's not why I'm doing it. I want to provide value and I want to give back, right?
100%. 100% in alignment, man.
Yeah. Just how much time do you have?
I'm good, man.
Okay. What would you do differently if you were to start the pavement group over? If you were back in 2018, what would you do differently from what you have done?
That's a good question, man. You know, I would have brought people in faster. You know, I think we were pretty conservative. You know, my biggest fear was always, you know, when you're starting out, bringing people in and making sure that you've got a place that's stable for them to be, right? And as you're growing a company, that overhead that you're bringing in to serve the customers that you're bringing on is very, it's very sensitive because it's human beings' lives, right? And so if I think back to that, I always wanted to make sure that I had, everything handled so that there was no risk of that. And what I've figured out over the last handful of years is that it always works out. So when you need the person, make the move and you'll figure out the rest, right? Because if you're a person that cares about people, you're always going to make sure that it works. And so it's not about being, irrational or taking crazy risks, but it's about, you get the vehicle to move a lot faster when you have everybody in the right seats, and people are the fuel to your growth. And so if you delay bringing on people, we don't do this anymore, but in the beginning, that is what I would have done differently, is I would have figured out a way to get more people in the company faster so that, it would have taken off even faster than it did. Right. And it distributes the workload. It makes it a lot more enjoyable. The first portion of our journey as the Pavement Group was pretty brutal when you're trying to do everything yourself. And, you got things, you got all this stuff on the wagon and it's constantly falling off, and you're trying to do the best that you can. And, you got all these processes in place, and you're making promises to customers that are really important to maintain, right? To deliver on. And so that is the one thing that I would do differently. I would bring people in faster.
I love it. How do you know when to bring someone in? Because that's a question I've covered it with a couple different people. But how do you decide when you need someone?
I think for us, we have figured out exactly how many projects, jobs, etc., that a person can manage on the operations side, can function, can process, can connect contractors, can we've got all those metrics of what we believe is feasible for an individual. And so as you start approaching that, data is the most important thing. Is listen to the data. Don't, match that up with your gut feelings, but make sure that you are tracking the numbers. I mean, the biggest issue, I think, in business, both on the sales side and just the business leadership, business ownership side, is that people want to follow their emotions or their gut feelings and not look at the numbers. And a lot of contractors don't even have those numbers, right? They don't take the time to put that together. They're still operating with the proposals on the dashboard and all that kind of stuff. And so the most important thing that you can do is know your numbers, have an accounting system and a tracking system that helps you understand exactly where you're at. And I think once you do that, man, it's really simple to see when you need more people, because a human being can only run so many leads, can only process so many jobs, can only manage so many jobs, schedule so many jobs. So I think it becomes very clear when you look at the data versus, trying to follow whatever it is that you feel.
Right. So you can see really quickly where the bottlenecks are as you grow.
Yep. Yeah, because you'll feel like you need people a lot sooner than you do.
Gotcha. Because you're so busy, but being busy is a good thing too.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like, you got to get to this point, because if you bring a person on too soon, what I was referring to earlier, then you could put yourself in a bad position, yourself and that, most importantly, that person. You're bringing somebody into your company and there's not enough to support what you're bringing them on to do.
Right.
If you don't look at the data, you wouldn't know that.
Right, exactly. What do you use to track jobs? I mean, I think for some of the smaller businesses, a CRM is a whole new concept and something that I've been really working to help my clients do and track. But what do you do?
So we've got a job tracking system, believe it or not, that we've built in Google Sheets. So it's very controlled, and then that spits out to an accounting system. We've got a proposal system that we use. CRM is, for a lot of contractors, man, that can be almost overkill. It just depends on their situation, because if you are a small company, couple people, you've got motivated salespeople who are doing their job, CRM's never a bad thing, but it just depends. It can be counterproductive in a lot of ways too. If you're trying to micromanage your people, what do you want them doing? Selling or entering stuff into the CRM, right? If you're trying to grow a company, don't be too controlling or micromanaging people, because it's counterproductive, right? And,
I like that perspective. Yeah.
but yeah, so, and, you know, it's as simple as, you know, you get leads in the door, you know, do they get a bid put to them? Do they get approved? You know, you have to have a system that kind of walks through the customer journey, that allows you to see, gives you visibility every single day. It's the first thing I do when I sit down at my desk every day. What did we sell yesterday? What did we complete yesterday? What, you know, looking again, managing the business by the numbers and taking the emotions out of it, because it's easy to get caught up in your emotions, man. This is a tough game we play, right?
Yeah.
And if you let your emotions guide you, you'll make a lot of mistakes as a leader.
I love it. And that actually segues well into kind of something that I was hoping to wrap up with, and that is, you know, what is your, I know you do your daily show pretty much every day, and I think you started that sometime last year, if I was listening correctly.
July last year, yeah.
So can you talk to me a bit about how you, kind of circling back to what I was saying about mindset and where you kind of start your day, but can you talk a bit about your day? That's something that I love learning about personally, and I think that other people could learn from.
Yeah, man. I just talked about this morning, so you got fresh information for me to deliver to you here.
Nice.
You know, I think it's the most important thing you can do is to create a routine for yourself. You know, yep. And for me, I've gone to the lengths of, like, even, you know, I have my own planner that I've designed. You know, I use it for all the top contractor school people that are, you know, clients of ours. But it's a routine, man. I get up at the same time. I walk through the same process every morning. So, you know, I wake up, the first thing I do, man, is put my feet on the floor, put my head in my hands, and think for a couple of minutes about just how grateful I am to be here, man. And that, you know, God gifted you with another day. Be thankful, be grateful. And I think that, you know, when you start your day like that, that everything else tends to fall into place a lot more frequently. And, you know, from there, go get a shower, get ready, head over to the office, usually get a walk in. I'm catching up on my stuff outside of the office here. I'll loop around the building a couple of times just to kind of get my body moving. And then I sit down here, and the first thing I do is go to my planner. I write down my goals. I pick a quote of the day. I read some scripture, as I showed you the book that I read out of every day. I watch a motivational video or listen to a podcast, and I read something out of a book. So
you're doing that every day? Every
morning before 7:30. So okay. When you see me at 7:30, turn that button on and go live, all of those things, all those boxes should be checked, unless something happens, which from time to time, there's always something that pops up. But all of those things, all those boxes get checked before 7:30. And then 7:30 to 7:50, 8 o'clock, I'm doing that show, depending on how long-winded I get that day. And then at 8 o'clock, I start to work through my to-do list. So before 7:30, I've got all my goals written down. I've got all those tasks accomplished, and hopefully I have my entire to-do list for that day written out, and then times assigned of when I'm going to do what. And then I just go to work.
Off to the races. So talk a bit about that time, because I'd love to dive into it personally. Talk a bit about that time. Is it like an hour, like a power hour basically that you're doing, where you're reading, watching, listening?
It's probably about an hour. Yeah. I wake up around 5:30 pretty much every day. Sometimes I'll sleep until 6. Like if I feel fatigued or I feel tired, I'll change, you know, the time that I get up, but I try to get up at 5:30 every day. Yep. And so 5:30 a.m. I get up. I'm usually at the office by 6:15. Sometimes it's 6 o'clock, sometimes it's 6:30. But, you know, from there on, I'm reading, I'm consuming, I'm organizing, and all that stuff. And then typically it takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to get ready to do the show that I do. Usually I have all those topics typed into my phone at some point. Yep. But yeah, it probably takes about an hour to do all that stuff, you know, hour and 15 minutes. And, you know, when I'm done, man, the best advice I could give for people is find ways to create momentum in your life. And momentum and equally as important, rhythm. So when you're in that rhythm every day, and when you get off, you know, it's the same routine, man. So from 5:30 to 8 o'clock, I'm doing the same things every single day, the same exact way, the same. And so it starts to deliver. It's those behaviors that you do every day is what leads to results. And so when you organize yourself, when you're intentional, you start to see the gaps that you have, the opportunities that you have where you're not using your time wisely, you're not doing things that you said you would do, they're right in front of you. You can't get away from them, right? So it's the most important thing that I've learned in my life is how to manage time. And it's a struggle all the time, man. You know, there's times where this COVID thing, man, sent my schedule all over the place, right? It was just the most challenging thing to stay on track when everything's off, right? Like everything is abnormal from what it's supposed to be or what you're used to. And so it's always a struggle. And, you know, I think, so this morning I talked about routine. What is your routine and what are you studying? You know, what are you actually investing your time into? What are you reading? Who are you studying? You know, are the people that you're studying people that you would trade places with? If they're not, then don't study them.
Yeah. Do you have recommendations of podcasts or books or motivation?
I'll give you my very favorite book. I wish I could reach it from here, but it's this. If you read this book, man, it will change your life. I promise you. It's called Beyond Positive Thinking, Dr. Robert Anthony. Sales books, you know, you can't go wrong with some Grant Cardone when it comes to sales books. I've got Jeffrey Gitomer up there. The Magic of Thinking Big is a big one. If I go through my list of podcasts here that I'm a big Patrick Bet-David fan, so he was never a podcast, but a video.
Bet-David?
Patrick Bet-David, yeah. Okay. Andy Frisella, Ed Milet are two guys that I go to for quite a bit. I'm part of the Arte Syndicate program, so coaching mentorship program, and those two guys are big. Grant Cardone I watch regularly, Gary Vaynerchuk. Any of those guys are going to give you good advice and a variety of perspectives. What's that?
And pump you up as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's the key. You know, I watched some Grant Cardone this morning. The video that I watched this morning, I would highly recommend that you go watch it, is how to handle people not liking you.
That's something we could all improve, I think, at every step of the way.
Yeah, and really the value that came out of it has nothing to do with the topic, but that's how you'll find it on YouTube. And there's just so much value. It's 10 or 15 minutes maybe, but it just puts you in the right state of mind, man. And you start to say, man, this guy's got the same problems or the same challenges or faces the same things as I do.
We're all humans, right? And so, you know, these people up here, they're human too.
Yeah, no question, man. No question. So the book that I'm reading right now is a really good one for branding and marketing and trying to coach companies to become better. It's called Iconic by Scott McKain. And what's wild is that, you know, this social media world that we live in is pretty wild. So my buddy Ken Walls, Scott McKain's a New York Times best-selling author multiple times over. And my buddy Ken Walls has a show every Sunday night on Facebook with Scott McKain.
Oh, cool. And I've got Ken's 100 live stream ideas here tacked on my wall. Yeah.
There you go, man. Ken Walls is a good guy, man. He's a good friend of mine, and they've got Glenn Morshower on there. If you don't know who that guy is, man, I'm part of his. I signed up for his acting class, not because I want to be an actor, but just to observe it, to see how all of that works, because from a delivery standpoint and a speaking standpoint, all that kind of stuff, you know, you want to get better at that stuff. Glenn Morshower was Agent Aaron Pierce on 24. The TV show 24 was in Black Hawk Down, a bunch of different stuff. A famous actor, right, and just a great human being, man.
That's awesome. That's very cool. No, that's a lot of great stuff for me to take away. So as you're going through these things, how do you kind of download that information in a format that you can keep? Do you refer back to it, or do you write it down once and never look back at it? What's your method of kind of taking the nuggets and keeping them so that they don't just drift down the stream?
Yeah, I think you know, consumption is one thing. You're going to consume a lot of things that are helpful. Those things that you know you need, you better write them down and revisit them, right? Because
you write them just on paper.
Yeah, I write everything down. I don't do anything when it comes to organization and planning and all that stuff in my life. I still use an Outlook calendar, but it goes on paper for me because the other way doesn't work for me. It has to be. There's something about writing it that makes a huge difference for me. So everything gets logged. And then I've got a section on my planner that's today's successes. Mm-hmm. So when I find something that's beneficial to me, I'll write it in there. And then I try to work that into my routine, or I'll revisit it, watch the same thing a couple of times until I know that I've got it down or implement something about it into my life.
I love it. Yeah, I've tried journaling probably 50 times before. I'm getting into a spot now where I can start to have more of a routine in my life. Going through university and before that doing construction, there's not a ton of chance for routine. I probably could have done it, but it just didn't happen. So I've been playing around with it a couple different ways to kind of download that information in a way that sticks for me, but also is referenceable. So that's interesting. I might have to try journaling again. I've been just writing it in Google Docs, kind of an ongoing Google Doc.
Try it the other way.
Yeah.
I would encourage you. Yeah. Try to write it down. Get a system. At the end of the day, on the bottom left side of my planner here, it has a W and an L. Did I win or did I lose today? And you just got to be honest with yourself. If you take some losses here and there, write them down. Taking losses on paper helps you not take losses in the future, recognizing what it was that made you lose that day. It really, really helps, and it will, over a long period of time. One of the things I say often, and I'll say it again here over and over and over again, we way overestimate what we can do in a day, and we way underestimate what we can do in a year. And most people don't commit to that because it's hard to do something for a year. It's hard to implement new things in your life. It's hard to try to do something and fail, and then dust yourself off, get back up, do it again, because you feel like a failure every time you don't do something you said you were going to do. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, those failures end up leading to the new things that you implement into your life. It is just incredibly important for you to be able to implement those things and be able to be willing to take the losses.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. Maybe we'll have to touch in. And do you have any pointers for journaling by hand?
I don't necessarily journal. Like, I don't write everything that happened that day. But I'll send you what I've got as far as the planner that I use, and it's super helpful, man. Like it pretty much encompasses a day, and it puts some structure to the front of your day, and then it helps you control throughout the day. And it cuts off, like I intentionally cut it off at 7 p.m. So
I love that. Yeah.
I can't, work every day till there's planners out there that go all day, every day. And it's like, if I don't plan anything past 7. The only thing that I do past 7 that's planned is one day a week. I do the top contractor call, but outside of that, I've got a family, and I don't work like this so that I can't enjoy that. Right. I work like this for my family, not to take it away from them. So
yeah. No, I love that. Awesome. Yeah. Shoot me the link and I'll even include it in did you say it was your own book, your own planner?
Yeah. It's just a PDF. You can print out the sheets and put it in a 3-ring binder or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Shoot it over. I'll include it in the podcast notes as well.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah. Great. Well, I mean, I think that kind of wraps it up, but if you have something to kind of leave people with and some sort of nugget.
Yeah, man. My advice to people is just dream big and do the things that you think you're not capable of, because you will surprise yourself. If I look back 2 years ago, if you would have told me I would be where I am right now, having gone through what I went through prior to starting this company, and even the beginning of starting this company, sometimes it seems out of reach. But if you could just focus on winning every single day, right? Just focus on trying to make some kind of progress every single day. You will look back and you will be just astonished at what you can accomplish in your life, and what kind of people you can attract. And, you do everything by a set of values that you live by, and it's never going to be perfect. You're not always going to make all the right moves or decisions. But at the end of the day, if you can lay your head on the pillow at night and know that you did your very best, you left it all on the field that day, and you do that every single day for a long period of time, there is nothing you can't accomplish. And that goes for anybody. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're kind of at a plateau in your business and you're trying to get to the next level and it seems harder. That pressure that you feel when you're trying to accomplish things, the harder that pressure gets, the closer you're getting to making it happen. And, so I started to kind of train myself to think. I get excited when that pressure comes, because I know that something good's about to happen, when most people start to get frustrated. And so if you train your mind to think, man, I'm getting closer and closer and closer because it's getting more and more and more difficult, you will experience those breakthroughs, one right after the next, right after the next, right after the next. And you'll look back and just be amazed at what you can accomplish. So don't ever be afraid, and don't hesitate to go after something that you want, because this life is short, man. And you will look back and wish that you had back some of those years that you delayed taking the jump, or you delayed taking the chance. And, how much further ahead could you be if you made the decision today instead of next week or next year?
I love that. This has been really good. I've really appreciated the chat. I think I said this to everybody. This is, I feel like I've taken away a lot. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on and add value to me and whoever happens upon this in the interwebs later on. But
I appreciate the opportunity to be here, man. It was great chatting with you, great getting to know you, and hopefully, we bring some value to some people that are listening here. So
absolutely perfect. Well, I'll stop rolling, and we can just wrap up off mic and go on our days.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you.